IB Nation, welcome back to another edition of the Irish Breakdown Podcast. That's Trevor Trowbridge. I'm Brian Driscoll, and we are going to get right to it. Trevor, we got a big week of shows coming up, a big week of content coming up, and the reason why is because Notre Dame has a big game this weekend. Notre Dame climbed up a spot in the AP rankings to number 16 after their 25-point win over Miami of Ohio. Louisville won a game this weekend over a Georgia Tech team that was ranked a couple weeks ago and gritted out a win. I think Louisville definitely could say that. It was not their best performance, but they absolutely did what they needed and came away with a 31-19 win in a game where it was just two good football teams, two good, well-coached football teams battling it out. And Louisville was able to come out with the win. So they're 3-0, and they jumped all the way up to number 15 in the AP ranking. So it's number 15 versus number 16. Big weekend for Notre Dame, and a lot to discuss about this matchup. So we're going to be doing shows all week breaking down this matchup. Today, we're going to begin talking about some of the news yesterday from Notre Dame with Jaden Mickey and Cooper Flanagan. And what that means for Notre Dame and how they kind of handle those departures and losses for different reasons. Then we'll dive into what this game means for Notre Dame, Trevor, because this is a huge game for Notre Dame in a lot of different ways, both from a macro level, short term this season, who this team is, big picture, all these type of things that they have to that it's just opportunities that are in front of them for this game. And then, of course, we'll then, after we talk about that for a while, we'll then dive into, hey, let's talk Louisville. And today we'll give you guys sort of an introductory level class into Louisville. We'll be back tomorrow to dive deeper into the matchup before the bye. So hold. And of course, Thursday we'll talk keys to victory and make our predictions for the game. But Trevor, man, we'll get started here in a second, folks. But before we do me a solid, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, share this podcast, give us a 5-star review. And when you get a free minute today, go over to Irish Breakdown, the premium lounge, boards at irishbreakdown.com. There's an hour and 6-minute long video. I promised you guys on Sunday night that I would do a full breakdown of the pass game. I did that. I did everything except the shovel pass and the tunnel screen, which are not really plays that had any impact or evaluative to what we're discussing here. But every single pass play, scrambles, sacks, throws, misses, makes, all of it, to say, hey, look, here's the film. Go into it with an open mind. I break down every play, what went right, what went wrong, and you can kind of get a glimpse of why I felt the way that I did coming out of that game, breaking down the pass game. So you're definitely going to check that out. Again, that I said I would get it done last night. Technically, it was done last night, but it took forever to upload into Vimeo. So by 4:30, I was like, okay, I'm going to bed, and I'm just going to do this in the morning. And so once that got done, got it up this morning, and I think you guys will enjoy it. It's no spin, because it's every single play, all 22, every single play. Breaking it down where the quarterback did well, where the quarterback didn't do well, where the O-line did well, where they didn't do well, where the receivers did well, where they didn't do well. And my takeaway was, I think this pass game is still a work in progress, but it's a lot closer than maybe even what I thought coming out of the game watching it live. So you'll get a chance to check that out at boards@irishbreakdown.com. Now, Trevor, let's dive into this matchup between Notre Dame and Louisville. And one of the things about Notre Dame is you got to worry about yourself first. And part of worrying about yourself is you're going to be down a couple players that have played a decent amount of snaps this season. And so yesterday it was announced, and this one move was not surprising. Cooper Flanagan not playing in this game. I had kind of heard that on Sunday, that he had a little bit of an ankle issue that was going to need to get worked out. And, it kind of comes at an interesting time, which we'll discuss during the show. But you had that news, which we expected. And then the news that I didn't expect, wasn't completely shocked by, but didn't expect it, was that Jaden Mickey was going to redshirt the rest of the season and then transfer after the spring where he got his degree. That was the best news of yesterday, was that Jaden is actually going to stay here through the spring to make sure he leaves Notre Dame with his degree. I am absolutely confident that is something his mother would have been very supportive of, no question about it. So we'll dive into what that means from a football standpoint. I don't really care to give commentary about whether I like the decision or not. It is what it is. It doesn't matter what I think about it. We're going to talk about how it impacts the football team and where Notre Dame goes from here. But that's two quality football players that you're now not going to have on top of Billy Strouth, Ashton Craig, Charles Jagasol, Jordan Patelho. Like, the injuries are starting to pile up a little bit, Trevor, and now Notre Dame is going to have to replace a guy at tight end who was your leader in snaps through the first 4 games. And then, of course, you're going to have to replace one of your rotation cornerbacks. And so let's first start off with the tight end position and what it means for Notre Dame now that they won't have Cooper Flanagan for this matchup against Louisville.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I'm excited, man. Get to talk about some top 20 matchup in South Bend. It's as fun as it is to go and prep about and talk about the Purdue game and the Miami of Ohio game. This was a game that was circled on a lot of people's calendars. So very excited to start diving into it this week with you, Bryan. But yes, losing Cooper Flanagan for this game, I think impacts the offense in a handful of different ways. One, like we've talked about before, one of the easiest ways to start getting your quarterback into a rhythm early is getting tight ends involved. And with Mitchell Evans coming off of an injury from last year, looks like he's slowly starting to regain a little bit of the confidence in the knee and the confidence of the offensive coaching staff to where he's seeing more snaps. But it was very much almost like a tight end by committee room from Mike Denbrock in the offense, right? So Cooper Flanagan, he's made impacts in the running game, run blocking game, and he's also made impacts in the passing game. I think the first passing touchdown for Notre Dame all season went to Cooper Flanagan when Angeli threw it to him in the third quarter against Purdue. So it's just, again, it's looking at a less of a talent impact coming into the Louisville game. It's one less target for Riley Leonard to throw to. And Cooper Flanagan is slowly starting to prove himself as a reliable ball catcher. So that one definitely hurts going into this week. He also had the game sealing run block on Jeremiah Love's touchdown run against Texas A&M. So it is a loss for Notre Dame's offense. I don't want to make it sound as crucial as what it is, but it is a loss nonetheless.
When you look at what Cooper Flanagan has done, he's a solid pass catcher. He hasn't been like an impact guy. The touchdown reception he had that you mentioned, that came against, actually it came against Purdue's first team defense, actually. And they had run that play earlier in the game, and it was more of a design handoff where they showed that action, and then they came back to it and read it because they knew how Purdue was going to play that. But it's not like he was out here ripping it up in the pass game because, as you mentioned, they hadn't really thrown to the tight ends as much. He did have 3 catches for 53 yards, but here's where Cooper was bringing a lot. He had 2 for 25, caught a nice corner route against Texas A&M. Not that he wasn't performing well in the pass game; he just wasn't getting a lot of targets. But what he was doing was blocking pretty well in the run game, and he was their best run blocker at tight end so far this season, which you were discussing. And right now, your team is built around running the football. And so that's a loss. Like, I would be less concerned about this loss if Mitchell Evans hadn't played the way he had on Saturday. I thought Mitchell Evans had the best blocking game of his career against Purdue. Saturday against Miami, had a couple nice blocks, but some really bad blocks and some bad effort plays. And his body language was a hot mess at times in that game. Like, I was very disappointed with his performance in the game. And I was as disappointed in his performance as he let everyone in the crowd know about his disappointment with the ball being thrown his way. So he let everybody know how disappointed he was in the throws coming his way. So I'm going to let everybody know how disappointed I was in his play as a route runner and blocker on Saturday. And Eli Raridan has not been the same blocker his last 2 years since his knee injury that he was as a freshman before he got hurt. And so that's something that also I look at and say, hey, this is a loss. This is a loss from that standpoint because you've lost your best, so far your best run blocker of the day of the season is out, and your team right now is built around running the football. So they're going to need Mitchell Evans to be the guy he was 2 weeks ago as a run blocker against Louisville. No question, because you're going to have to be able to have your edge blocking is going to be crucial in this game. And that's where not having Cooper Flanagan makes me a little bit nervous about that part of it. So, yeah. That's a concern.
100%. I'm going to be interested to see how much maybe Davis Sherwood gets in the game as almost like that H-back, fullback type of role that he's been in before in previous offenses. Who knows? Because Denbrock's scheme is a little bit different. But there are some blocking alternatives that you can have if Mitchell Evans comes out and has a game like he did last week, which, like we've talked about, he can't. In a game of this magnitude, you can't lay an egg. So, but there are some other options potentially. Not the ideal state, but regardless, the loss of Cooper Flanagan is going to be huge in the run game.
So when you look at the loss, the nice thing about it though, Trevor, is what the answers are primarily. Maybe they trigger Davis Sherwood as a number 2. I mean, the reality is when you've got Mitchell Evans and Eli Redden, you shouldn't have to go that route. You do have Kevin Bauman, who perhaps you could maybe trigger a little bit in some of those run situations. He's a bigger guy, that you can kind of put in there. And so it really is going to come down to 88 and 9 need to be better. That it's as simple as that. If they play to their ability, then the tight end is going to be absolutely fine for Notre Dame. Absolutely fine. But again, that's got to be mean. They got to, like, I guess that's what I was so frustrated by last week is you kind of get some of the inconsistency with some players. But you're talking about a senior who's played a ton of football at Notre Dame, who's on preseason All-American list. You kind of expect him to just play with a little bit better, more consistent effort and be better. But overall, the tight end blocking was really good against Purdue. It was not that great in this game. They're going to need to be on their best against Louisville. There's no doubt about it. So let's talk about the other side of the ball, Trevor. And Jaden Mickey is going down. And the response to this to me has been a little bit missing the boat. And people have said, well, they're going to be fine because look, they've got Leonard Moore was already passing him up, which is kind of true. Not entirely true because Leonard Moore was mostly playing boundary corner and Jaden Mickey is not a boundary corner, but you could play him more there. Jaden was your rotation guy at the second corner spot. He was playing over 20 snaps a game. I believe he has over 80 snaps so far in the season. You say, well, they're going to be fine because they've got Leonard Moore. But here's the reality with Jaden Mickey out, Trevor, your two primary backups at cornerback right now are true freshmen. You do not have any scholarship cornerbacks after that now not only is Jaden out, but not Christian Gray, because I don't believe that those rumors are true. Chance Tucker is also out because of the knee injury he suffered. So Notre Dame is getting into a position now where as long as everybody stays healthy, they're going to be fine at cornerback. But you're only in game 4 and you're already in a hopefully everyone can stay healthy mode now because you're down to 4 scholarship corners. And I know that what Coach Freeman said about Rod Hurd. No, if you're putting Rod Hurd in at cornerback, it's going to be a problem, in my opinion. So they are now at the point now where they can't suffer another loss at cornerback or they're going to be in trouble. They're going to be in big trouble because you're now down 2 scholarship cornerbacks. One of them by injury, it happens. The other one because the kid just decided he wasn't going to finish what he started with his teammates. I mean, for whatever reasons, whatever. I'm not trying to get into that, but that ultimately is the decision he made. And that puts him in a tough spot and you haven't really played a dynamic pass offense yet. I would say the 2 best pass offenses you're going to face this season, maybe the top 4 pass offenses you're going to face this season are still on your schedule. And one of them is coming to town on Saturday, so it's a loss. It is definitely a loss. Now, are you losing a starter? No. Was Jaden Mickey playing great football? No. But he's still a veteran player that's proven to a degree that can bring value in certain aspects of the game that you no longer have. And yes, even if Carson Hobbs and Leonard Moore both play great as backups, you're still better off with them and Jaden Mickey. And that's a much bigger loss than I think people are talking about, especially if there's another injury.
It's a loss in the short term and the long term, right? Long term, we've talked about it all season long. The goal is to make the playoffs. This is going to be a longer season for Notre Dame, ideally. And I don't want to get into the playoff talk right now, the specifics of it. But in terms of depth, it's going to be huge for the season, right? you want to start using and getting deeper into your bench when you have those games like the Armies and the Navies coming up on your schedule. And with the loss of Jaden Mickey, that kind of puts you at the 2 deep, and that's it. And Notre Dame has been rotating their corners a lot throughout this year to keep people fresh. And which is why we've seen the emergence of Leonard Moore. It's why we saw Carson Hobbs at the end of the game last week against Miami of Ohio, which is really exciting. But to your point, Bryan, I look at this like when Logan Diggs transferred out after the 22 season, and it was kind of a polarizing topic of people. They were either Team Audric or Team Logan Diggs, and for people like you and I, we're Team Notre Dame. Whatever makes the team better, I am on board for. And sure, he might not have been playing the best football right now, but to your point, that Notre Dame is one injury away from having to start a true freshman with the bulk of their difficult games ahead of them on the schedule. And that can be kind of an uncomfortable feeling. So losing Jaden Mickey in the short term, it's going to ask Leonard Moore and Carson Hobbs to grow up significantly quicker, which it sounds like they have been.
Moore has clearly.
Yes.
Moore clearly has. I mean, Leonard had already passed up Chance Tucker by the time when Chance got hurt. Like, that had already happened. Leonard was having a great offseason. Now Carson Hobbs, he had not passed up Jaden Mickey. And people can spin this, he saw the writing on the wall. He was going to get passed up by Carson Hobbs. No, he wasn't. Carson Hobbs was playing nickel. Like that this was not a situation where he was getting passed up by someone at field corner, right? And so like you said, Trevor. I think you nailed it. These freshmen are going to have to grow up in a hurry because, like you and I have talked. Well, I've talked about this a bunch, and you and I have never talked about this on the show. But I've always believed, Trevor, and I want to get your thoughts on this. I have zero problem playing freshmen. I like playing freshmen when they've earned it. I never want to play a freshman because I have to. And Notre Dame is an injury away from having to play a freshman at cornerback out of necessity. And if they want to go more than beyond the starters, they have to play a freshman. And to me, that's a concern. That's definitely a concern.
It is. It's a scary thing to look at, right? Because when you're a true freshman and you've earned that shot to play, to the coaching staff, that means you are ready. Whereas if you have to play out of necessity, that conversation quickly goes from you've earned it and you now are ready to now you have to be ready. And there's a very short window of time to get that player ready. Because, I mean, going through a week of a football program, I mean, you're going from having to take second team reps, you rotate in a little bit with the first team to now your entire world changes and you're starting to take first team reps and you're getting different looks. And on top of everything else, you now become a focal point for an opposing offensive coordinator to target, especially if you're a true freshman. Now, there are instances where that's what bred Benjamin Morrison, right? Clemson comes into town. They are, weighing your options of, hey, we're either going to start picking on Cam Hart or true freshman Ben Morrison. I know which one I'm going after. And Ben Morrison rose to the occasion, and then here we are. But ideally, Notre Dame doesn't get into a situation where they have to start playing true freshmen because that is it's a daunting thought.
Yep. So that's kind of where Notre Dame is at now in the cornerback position. You're in a very tight spot, and we're going to see how it plays out. Hopefully, we don't have to have a conversation about, well, what do you do now that one of your starters is down? But you're also means that your starters are going to have to play a little bit more snaps now at corner, which. We'll kind of see how it plays out. But Jaden Mickey was a guy that had played 82 snaps. I see some of the comments. He was on the bench. He wasn't on the bench. He was averaging like 20. He was averaging 20 snaps a game. He was on pace for almost 250 snaps this season. And so when you take that out of your lineup, that's a loss. That's certainly a loss to your team. And your team is better with Jaden Mickey on the field than not having him on your team at all, in my opinion. So we'll see how he's able to overcome that. But certainly you're getting into some positions now, Trevor, at multiple spots where the depth chart's getting a little bit concerning. It's getting a little bit concerning. Left tackle is one of those spots. You're getting in a little bit of that spot here now at tight end. Because now it's like, okay, the rest of your depth chart behind Cooper is Mitchell Evans, who's had injury problems. Kevin Bauman has had injury problems. Now, the good news is Cooper Flanagan's ankle injury doesn't seem like it's going to be incredibly long term. And I'll say this, the timing of it is actually like, you don't want him to get injured. But if the timing of it actually works out relatively well for Notre Dame in this regard. Number one, Mitchell Evans is kind of finally getting back into the groove of he can now play full time. If this happened 3 weeks ago, you'd have been in a tougher spot because Mitchell wasn't at a place now where now he's kind of rounding into form and he can maybe give you 15, 20 extra snaps. Eli Raridan is getting to that point where he can give you 15, 20 extra snaps. So those two guys can easily take the snaps, the workload without putting them at risk. That's a good place to be. And then the second one is, yes, he's going to miss the Louisville game, but you got the bye week coming up next week. So if he needs, because ankle injuries can be problematic if you try to rush him back. So now you go through the whole next week of just rehab and rest. That's all he needs to worry about next week is rehab and rest without the fear of missing a game. And so now you actually have a little bit extra time to get Cooper back before he has to play another game after this weekend. So in that regard, Trevor, I think the timing of it, if it was going to happen, this is actually decent timing, because even if it would have happened, let's say in this game, and but now you don't know that he's going to definitely be back by the time Stanford comes to town. Now there's a much higher chance of him being able to do that. And that's the key. So I do think the timing works out well.
Yeah, the timing works out really well for Billy to come back, and definitely going to be a huge impact when he does return. But I think you hit the nail on the head. The depth chart is starting to look eerily thin, especially when you start running through the injury report, and knowing that Notre Dame is just going into week 5 really starts to put that thought in the back of your head that you don't want to creep in, but that injury bug, because I know a lot of people will start talking about it. We're going to start seeing, I know we talk all the time about, the offensive line struggling, time to see how Joe Rudolph is. I think now we're going to start to see what kind of strength and conditioning coach Lauren Landau is, and see how he's going to be able to handle the performance of the team. So I think all of those things combined are going to be interesting. The tough part for a coach is you still have to go out and play a physical game at 100% of your capabilities, and you can't think about injuries. So, but kind of that Sunday to Thursday, Sunday to Friday is when you have to take those into consideration. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, you can't say, well, man, if only we had Cooper this weekend. Well, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
So focus on what you do have. Man, if only we had Patello this weekend, okay, you don't. So what are you going to roll with? And that's kind of where they are. So that's going to do it for segment number 1, Trevor. Before we hit on to segment number 2, folks, do us a favor, hit that like button. If you have not already done so, make sure you hit that like button. And again, you're going to want to get over and check out that breakdown that we have over there. I do think that was very good. Plus, that took all day yesterday, for me to put together. So just check that out, just for the sheer fact of it make me feel better knowing that a lot of people watched it after I spent my entire day breaking it all down. But it was actually fun doing it, because it is like I said, the part of the reason I did it is because my opinion changed of his performance after breaking down the film. You guys remember we were in a group chat together. I was not pleased with the performance watching it live. Then you go back and you watch the film and you're like, you know what? This is a lot better than I thought. It's not there yet. Like somebody on the chat, guy that I love, was like, I disagree with you. I'm like, well, what exactly are you disagreeing with? Like, he still made mistakes. Well, I'm pretty sure I said that in the breakdown, that there was definitely some things that need to get fixed and corrected. But there's some other things. And no, the film is not on YouTube, because I don't put any of that stuff on YouTube. It is on our premium board. So you have to be a member of the board to check that out. So, I think it was good stuff. It was very good stuff.